All right, so I have no idea how this video is going to go. It's a situation where I'm just so in tune with my training right now and so in tune with just not the technical aspects of training, not the programming, but the mindset, the approach, what's going on in my head, my priorities, and why I'm doing it. I'm very in tune with this right now. I figured I just woke up from a nap, which is really rare for me. I never really nap that much. I think it's because I'm in a mini cut and my energy is pretty low. So bear with me here. This video is going to be a little bit out there, and I'm not entirely sure how to start it. But what I do want to talk about, and we'll see how it goes from here. When we get into lifting, we're doing it because of an innate desire that we have to improve our body and to bodybuild. Whether it's because you don't like where you're at right now and you don't feel that good about yourself, or if it's a situation like myself where I felt fine. I didn't have anything that I didn't like about myself. I just thought bodybuilding was cool. Wherever you're starting from, we all have these goals. And with the fitness industry, especially at the age that a lot of us get into it, which is when we're a little bit younger and more impressionable, it's easy to get into the industry and you immediately get drawn to the extremes. And you don't even get drawn to it at first because you just think it's obscure, but the more you see it, the more you get used to it. So when I first started, I was 16, 17, something like that. And the thing here is, it's not my 23-year-old self that built the lifter that I am today and the successes that I've had in lifting and my knowledge in it today. It's the hidden gems in the mindset of that 16 or 17-year-old that turned me into who I am. And although that 16 or 17-year-old kid was not very articulate or not very smart and not that big and didn't really understand programming, it's the hidden gems in that person's innate desire when it comes to bodybuilding that actually made me successful in lifting. So to go back to my other point, when you get into the industry, you see these obscure things. You see Larry Wheels squatting 900 pounds and you're like, what the hell is that? Like, kind of cool, kind of weird. I don't really care about it. You see the guys that are going for the 6% body fat year-round look. There's a few big YouTubers that do that. And you think it's weird. Like, this is too extreme. This isn't what I want. And the more you get exposed to it, the more you get brainwashed into chasing those things. And you chase the extremes. And it's this strange thing where we all lose our innate desire because we don't have the success yet. We don't have the confidence in ourselves yet. And we all succumb to these weird extremes. And we lose kind of the beauty of what our innate desire is. And we lose that potential. And that's the tough part about it. So when I woke up from this nap, it was the strangest thing. I woke up and immediately tapped into that mindset of my 16-year-old self, of that 17-year-old self, whenever I first started lifting. And there's a few quotes that I articulated that I do want to go through to describe the hidden gems of that teenager that led me to who I am today and the successful lifter that I'm kind of am, and that I'm more importantly becoming, because I'm not at my potential. I'm nowhere close to it in terms of my understanding of lifting and my actual success as a bodybuilder. The first quote that I have here: the desire for muscle comes first. You devote yourself to the lifts that get you growth. And this is one of the most important parts of that innate desire that this kid had a few years ago. So I had this innate desire to do these simple things like get bigger arms.
I like training all my muscles. It's really hard.
Get a bigger chest. If you haven't seen my podcast with Abel yet, on SSD Abel on his channel, we talk about that. And we both kind of talk about, he raised a great point where he talks about arm training. Who does that? That's just for bros. And you take pride in mocking arm training. And then, when you focus more on back, all of a sudden you're cooler because you don't care about the stupid bros that just do curls all day, right? And then the people that just focus on lower body, that's like the highest status. You're the highest on the totem pole when you only care about lower body. And while you can lift yourself up and feel good about yourself for doing that, it's at the expense of why you're actually lifting in the first place. So it's this weird paradox that doesn't benefit you. And that's an issue. So the mindset that the 17-year-old little basement had, the kid that didn't know much at all, that wasn't very smart or gifted, but had that right mindset and was in tune with himself enough, you have the desire to grow that certain muscle. That's why we're all bodybuilding. I know most of you guys on this channel, you don't care about your performance. You don't care about the extremes. You don't care about being 6% body fat or benching 500 pounds. You want to develop your body as much as possible. And that's an extreme in itself, but that's more of a natural extreme. That's more of an innate extreme that applies to more people than these obscure, very niche things that you see in the industry. So the desire for muscle comes first. You devote yourself to the lifts that get you growth. You don't get drawn to that freaky lift where you can put up a ton of weight. That's something that I think Larry Wheels, maybe he's an exception. He's a freak. He is a freak of nature. That's a niche random example. Most of us aren't like that. Most of us are here to get bigger arms, to get a bigger chest, to get meaty, thick forearms. It's things like this that we're chasing. So when you know what that desire is, you devote yourself to the lifts that get you those results in those muscles. When I first started lifting, my favorite lift, like the lift I prioritized most, was overhead seated easy bar extensions. Think about how much I would get shit on right now. Put myself in the mainstream of the fitness industry. Say I'm some generic influencer on Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I was kind of intelligent, kind of knew what I was talking about, and I was like, the most important lift in my program is overhead easy bar extensions. I would get shit on by everybody. Everyone would say, oh, you're such a pussy. That's such an easy lift. Focus on the big muscles. Focus on the big lifts. It's a isolation lifts don't work. All these little things. And when you can see past that and just look back to what it is, what that lift does for you, there's a reason why that lift was the most important thing for me. And this is before I was getting brainwashed into the mainstream of the fitness industry. That was my innate desire. I researched all you could about growing your arms and getting bigger triceps. And there's something I was like, oh, the stretch in the triceps, the way I can take this to failure and train it frequently, that was like the most magical thing in my mind, where I thought this was like this lift was a superpower. And of course, I've learned more along my way of lifting, but looking back to whatever muscle it was or whatever lift that was that got you the growth where you wanted it, that's important. And one thing to follow this point up, you want to avoid falling in love with the process to the detriment of your innate bodybuilding motives. And this is building off my last point a little bit. It's put out there a lot that you should be falling in love with the process. And I agree with that to an extent, but as lifters, we tend to take that to an extreme. And this is why I talk about things like bodybuilding is the time when you're not in the gym. Lifting is what you have to do to get the results, but a performance-based sport, and this is the true difference between strength training and bodybuilding. A performance-based sport is most important in the gym. You're in the gym to perform, and that's the highlight of what you're doing. That's the highlight of your day. You are in the gym, and that's your boxing ring. That's your stage. When you're bodybuilding, your stage is your day-to-day life. It's the 23 hours of the day that you aren't in the gym. Bodybuilding is all up here. It's all up here. All day, you are bodybuilding. You are a bodybuilder. You have to sacrifice that hour or two to go to the gym to actually get the results. But when you take that 10% of your day that you're in the gym and you fall in love with that process too much and that's all you do, now you're missing out on the actual benefits of bodybuilding because you're getting distracted by flashy objects in the gym. And this might sound a little out there or bro-y, but when you think about it, it's okay to love the process of the gym, but don't get distracted by your performance in the gym. Picture your old self, not your younger self, your former self, your older self, I guess. Don't want to confuse you, but I probably just confused you more. You look at your younger self, why you first started. Would that person be happy with you sacrificing your goal to enjoy the process even more? I don't think so. And I think as much as it's important to enjoy your training, you have to realize that it's just part of your day. And when you enjoy your training too much, I think that's almost weak because you're giving up on your goal to make yourself more consistent and enjoy the process more. But when you lose sight of why you're training in the first place, you also don't get to reap the benefits of actually achieving that goal. And you don't get to become who you should be and who you want to be. And as extreme as that might sound, there's a lot of truth to it, because when I stopped training for bodybuilding, I gave up on lifting and completely forgot. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. I kind of lost everything. I'm not saying you guys are like me, because I definitely care about this more than most, but I think a lot of you guys that are on a channel like mine probably have a pretty similar mindset to myself. I think that's what attracts you to this channel, because there's not a whole ton of people that talk about these kind of obscure mindset things with bodybuilding. So I'm not the best at talking about this kind of stuff. I'm not the most articulate person. What I'm trying to do is just relate to you guys, and I want you to tap into why you actually started lifting. The last thing, and this is a little bit more technical in terms of programming and how you set up your program. The status of the muscle overrides the status of that lift. And this is a more zoomed in example of my previous quote. So this is that tricep example. Why would I start to care more about a bigger lift, or a lift that has higher status in the fitness industry, than the lift that gets me the results that I'm looking for? You take a bicep curl, you take a forearm stretched wrist curl. Why is the bigger lift getting biased? There are certain examples and there's certain times where, when it comes to a programming sense, when you actually have to think about intensity and this kind of stuff, yeah, certain lifts that you might enjoy the most might have to go a little bit later in the workout. Sure, that's fine. But when you start to get into the power building type mindset, where you bias the bigger lifts that maybe don't target the muscles that you actually care about or get you the results that you're looking for, but those take not just physical precedence in the program, but they also take importance over what you now call accessory lifts. Now, maybe your program is slightly more optimal, but now you lost sight of why you have that program in the first place and why you're in the gym in the first place. I do want to leave the video at that. I hope this resonated with some of you. I know it's a little bit out there. It's a little bit hippy-dippy for who I typically am, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll have more practical programming stuff in the future. See you soon.